Well, hey everybody. My name is Jared Malott. I'm here with my good friend Mateo Calise. This is
Hello,
the
everyone.
Coltist, episode 30, the LaRon Landry episode.
Yeah,
Uh
former strong safety in
yeah.
the. Was he like? I believe he was like among the first like big free agent signings from Ryan Rickson. He was
Mm,
given like a really big contract at the time for the Colts. And when we were speaking before, I remembered
hmm
like he had a like one of the best debuts out of like safeties in the Indianapolis Colts, where he got 15 tackles against the Oakland Raiders. They were in Oakland at the time.
hmm
And I thought like I remember at the time, I loved Gregson. I thought that he was among the best general managers in the NFL.
Oh
And
man, how's that Kool-Aid?
yeah, I was wrong.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was
So
not right.
LaRon Landry is Pro Bowler for the Jets. The year he was there. LSU kid from Ames, Louisiana. All-American at LSU as well. So, despite not being a Super Bowl winner, I'd argue Pro Bowler and All-American pretty high honors.
Yeah,
And spent the meat of his career at what I would call substandard organizations in Washington and the New York Jets. And I say that with a straight face. So, of course, we're lucky to talk about a guy that had 150 tackles in a couple of years for the Colts, despite like probably not playing up to the contract that he received. I could give a
yeah,
shit
which
about. I
was
should have.
really big.
I don't care
It
about it.
was
Somebody's money.
like
I don't care about that.
4 years, 4 years, signed like 25 million, which was like it was not the salary
Pretty good.
cap and the contracts that we are seeing right now. It was
Right.
like a big deal at the time.
Yeah. Hopefully, still got a couple bucks. You know what I mean?
From what I read, I saw. Do you ever watch like Flemlo Raps videos on YouTube?
Yeah.
He made one on LaRon Landry, and from what I saw from that, if I remember correctly, he was like really financially like he knew what he was doing with his money, and he was smart
Nice.
about it.
Good to see.
And yeah, that's always good to see. It's because it's usually the other way around where you're like, oh, this guy retired 3 seasons ago and he's now broke.
Yeah.
So
I always tell everyone, when anyone asks me how I'm doing, I always say I'm lucky to be here. For the same reason, for every LaRon Landry, there's a Delonte West.
yeah,
For every Jared Malott, there's a homeless veteran that doesn't have the sort of stability that I have. So I have people like you to thank for sort of keeping me afloat. We're all kind of surviving the apocalypse together, right? Um, as it were. Um, Coming into this season, it has honestly felt like the apocalypse, right? There's absolutely been dead silence out of the Colts organization, right?
yeah,
All the
nothing to write about. It has been
and
the
nothing good has come out about the
seriously like
Colts. It's all been like the Colts are being really underrated. I saw a
since
thing,
I started covering the team, it has been like seriously the quietest off season of them all. Like
yeah,
nothing
yeah,
happened, nothing flashy. We had
no,
McBride. It was all like okay,
yeah.
no
Had a
problems.
nice draft.
Yeah,
Didn't really need much. Just drafted a bunch of athletes and
I honestly have nothing to complain about.
nothing at all.
Like, from what you could do, it just perfect. Just
I was
I'm gonna
thinking the only thing anyone can complain about is I saw Troy Russell wrote an article and I was thinking it. I didn't want to say anything because you know how it is. You say something, somebody writes an article about it and it takes off and you're like, damn, that was my thunder somebody stole. But I thought like the Colts are super being opportunistic on defense does not make you good. It just means you're
yeah.
opportunistic. And Troy Russell wrote this article. If you haven't read his work, he's a data guy. I'm a data guy. Man, what a guy. But he writes
Yeah,
this article about how the
he's
Colts,
probably like the smartest person, like numbers wise, I ever talked football about. He's like
the guy.
really smart guy. I love his work.
Well, he writes this article about how um these are the statistics that a lot of people care about, but then look at these other sorts of statistics that kind of show you that the Colts are sort of middle of the pack or even later. And it kind of was like one of those articles where you're like, I want to push this out into the forefront because when I think about what championship teams are made of, it's when they have great fans that are able to look at their data, show you where you can improve. And it actually takes you directly towards a player like Matt Ryan, right? So for the Colts, I don't know if you've caught it on. If you're listening to our podcast, I'm assuming you're listening to this as a result of a link you see either on Twitter or on Stampede Blue. So you probably are. There's a very high likelihood somebody knows who I am and has seen me. I've shit on Wentz constantly. Uh, Now that he's gone, he's not ours, right? But Matt Ryan, man, I will never get over the fact that when the dude first came to Indy, what did he do? He bought beer to Pat McAfee in person and came on the podcast and was an awesome guest. It almost
Yeah.
foreshadows what this is going to be like for me. And that is he was mistake free, right? He showed up beer in hand. He stayed the whole time. He was a great guest. He was great in conversation. That lets you know that he's all in. And
Yeah.
you didn't get that out of Carson Wentz. And that tells you exactly why the same reason LaRon Landry maybe didn't play up to his contract in Indy is because he played most of his time at one of the worst organizations in professional sports in the Washington Redskins, Commanders now.
Yeah.
And that just happens to be where Carson Wentz is now. So just like you said, I'm ecstatic. So first of all, I don't like to work. I don't know about anybody else. I fucking hate it. So when it's really quiet and there's nothing to talk about, I'm just like, sweet, like cool. I don't like doing anything anyway. So great. We had it all in hand. We had a great draft. We got rid
Yeah.
of Carson Wentz. We got Matt Ryan, Um,
Yeah.
obviously,
Stephon Gilmore, Yannick Ngakoue. It was
oh my
just
God.
like all around.
The
You
the
just
article I saw today, I was glad we're recording a podcast tonight. I refuse to name names because I don't want to. People already don't like me. Nobody talks to me, so it's not like it matters. But I saw an article. An SI writer wrote this. A singular, and I'm not reading anything. I could look at the camera and say this, but a singular source told me that the Colts move for Stephon Gilmore was one of the more overrated of the offseason. Um, and that constitutes a slow news day. When a singular source can be the subject of an article on Sports Illustrated, that lets you know that jack shit happened in the Colts offseason that needed to be talked about today. And that's where we are. Um, when the reality is like the Colts needed to upgrade on defense and did so both through the draft and in personnel moves and then obviously I'd argue like already are fine at quarterback, like gonna be absolutely fantastic at quarterback. And I keep forgetting like Nick Foles is here too. Like yeah, this is fine, right? The only
yeah.
the only things I'm a little concerned about, concerns and or this is the thing. Kenny Moore's coming in to training camp looking for a new contract. So hopefully he comes in and lights it up. And they're just like take him off the field and give him 150 million. Jesus. And then Darius Leonard obviously recovering from back and ankle
Yeah,
surgery.
hopefully he gets back to 100% because
Yeah.
you could tell last season that he wasn't like
That
you
he was
could tell that he was
spending.
banged up. Yeah, and he was
He was
still
spending his body. Yes, he was.
like an all pro caliber linebacker. So you're just like, okay, if this guy can get healthy, he has the potential to become like top two
Yeah.
and perhaps even the best linebacker in the game.
Yeah, he
But
has
he
he
needs
has a
to get
unique
that.
he has a unique skill set in that he's very difficult to block and he's a really good tackler. So when you when you're like long, lanky, got a lot of gas, really fast, and then also it's not really he's not really very well blocked, and then he's actually pretty good ace tackler, and obviously all the knocking the balls down and making plays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just just a naturally gifted football player. So last year he was injured spending his body and then hopefully he invested in it in the off season and gets back to 100% because all this game is really, if you think about it, if a team's got a good quarterback, Jesus, if they just stay healthy, you know? Like think about the Baltimore Ravens last year. I mean, I'm not even the only one saying it. Like every major news outlet is pointing this out. Like Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens were the number one seed in the AFC through 12 weeks last year. And if it weren't for injuries, God, I mean, they were good, right?
Yeah,
The Colts are in my eyes on the upswing, and on the upswing of just missing the playoffs is in the mix. Um, so it's important. The NFL game is a lot different than any other game, and the
yeah,
more you get into it, the more you realize it's although there's a lot of mystique um about players and personnel, right? Like one of the things again, I will always come around to this with the way injuries affect players. I'd also seen an article written about the Colts having like a pretty lackluster wide receiver room.
yeah. Which is like, yeah, that is perhaps my only reason to complain.
Yeah.
Because other than Michael Pittman, what do we have? We have Al Pierce, who's a rookie who, may turn out fine. Perhaps he won't. Paris Campbell, who has like the worst luck in the world with injuries,
Yeah.
and then nothing else. Ty, we have no idea what will happen with him. And then who else do we have? Desmond Batman, who played like 20 snaps over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
Mike Strahan, who was like hyped but did not play at all. Who else is on a wide
He's
receiver?
a special ball carrier though. Six
Yeah,
five plus 230-ish. That's
you know, I wrote an article about it, and I don't remember like the exact numbers, but
yeah.
it was like other than Michael Pittman, the Colts to have a single receiver that had over 20 receptions in a season.
At wide receiver.
Yeah, at wide receiver.
And now I think
So like what is the deal with that?
you're gonna have 100 plus receptions between Alec Pierce and Nyheim Hines. And
Yeah,
then and then you're probably looking at another 75 to 100 catches out of Michael Pittman. Um, and then kind of the reality of that is between balls to tight ends, backs, and those three wide receivers ish. Like Nyheim Hines is a slot. He's an
yeah.
SWR, a slot wide
My
receiver.
thoughts is that he's going to be like a full-time wide receiver this season, or like say 80% of the time he's going to be like, especially with
He's the
Philip
nickelback
Lindsay
of the
now in the
offense,
mix. Yeah,
right?
I don't think he's going to be used as a runner that much.
No, because
Especially now you
here's the
have,
thing, in the NFL you don't really want to run laterally because everybody's fast at this level, and what you want is a guy facing downfield with space. And
yeah,
especially a little guy like Naeem Hines, putting him behind the tackles or between the tackles is kind of fucking dumb when you could just put him out in the flat when there's two people out there and he's going to make somebody miss and he's tough, right? And he don't go down easy. He's pushing people off him, So that again, I'll always come back to what the fuck was that shit last year where he was just not involved in the offense. And again, I honestly believe it's because Carson Wentz couldn't stand it. That he could literally have the whole offense be carried by Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor because they're
yeah,
literally capable. You could give those guys 50 touches a game and you will never lose. Bet me money. If they ever get there, we do not lose that football game. I promise, because the Colts have figured it out. Run one of them that way and one of them the other. Pick. One of them's going to distance. Because it's really where the Colts are now is you score quick. You want this defense on the field because they're going to give you a ball right back with short field. You know what I mean? Because they're opportunistic. And then you get out ahead of some of these teams and they can just never come back.
yeah.
17 points with very rare exceptions, almost
Hmm.
very difficult to
Yeah.
overcome. So, and
Yeah, unless Carson Wentz is your quarterback and Eric Fisher is your left tackle, and then you start blowing double-digit leads,
yeah, well,
like
there's
against the
that.
Ravens, against the back. So
Mm,
that feels like it happened 5 years
years
ago.
ago.
Like
Yeah.
just like a small parenthesis, time without football just goes by so fucking slow.
Yeah.
It's unbearable.
Yeah. I mean the bright spot of what I call the doldrums of summer, which is basically the end of June to the end of July, is 4th of July, my birthday, and then there just happens to be a whole bunch of other birthdays around that time. But other than that, you're right. I mean, there's really not a lot on TV. I've been
Yeah.
watching I watched a lot of 3-on-3 basketball. I watched a lot of track and field. I watched the World Games. I don't understand why track and field is not more popular. It's like the coolest sport in the world. It's like watching like everybody likes Fast and Furious, right?
Yeah.
But people don't want to watch F1 racing. Are you stupid? Like those are the legitimate supercars racing versus
Yeah.
like illegal street racing. What? And then same it's the same thing with like it's like people that are, oh, I like college football, I don't like the NFL. It's like, okay. So you like
It's just like
hot
what?
rods and not Ferraris. Like gotcha. Perfect. Everybody has their thing. You know what I
But
mean?
yeah, yeah, but we don't have football, we don't have basketball.
Yeah.
But I this is probably like the first time in many years that I am really hyped both about the Pacers and the Colts.
Pacers and the Colts, yeah. That's why, I mean,
So
that's one of the reasons we haven't recorded a podcast in a month is for that exact reason. Other than it being like the doldrums of summer, there's really not a lot to talk about. Everybody else is recording podcasts. Uh, you know what I mean? But there's really nothing here uh of substance. You know what I mean? Like they were rating the Colts offensive line
yeah,
top
and
ten.
yeah, writing articles on Pro Football Focus like
Yeah.
grades, which are like the in
God.
my humble opinion are like the stupidest thing that if
It's
someone says to me like, "Oh no, X, this guy is better than this guy because this guy has a 90 grade in Pro Football Focus and this guy has a 70 grade," it's like, okay, you know nothing about football, like
yeah,
literally
no.
nothing. Like your opinion just like lost all sort of like my respect. You just lost it.
Yeah, like in fact, I'd argue bringing up Pro Football Focus delegitimizes your entire thesis on sport and
Yeah,
as a whole. It's the same people that is it what is it the is it the is it total QBR? Is it the one that the ESPN has its hands on?
yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
no,
We
that's
talked
that's
about that
another
last
thing
season.
you don't take that
Yeah,
serious either
you
because
you
because
remember
it's
that?
arbitrary. Yeah.
Yeah, that I believe that it was like Carson Wentz was better than Dak Prescott, or there was like something like that, and you're just like, okay, this just makes no
Yeah.
fucking sense.
Nah.
But the thing is that I mostly use PFF for the stats, like for offensive linemen and defensive linemen, like their pressures, sacks,
Hmm.
hurries, pass blocking snaps, like hurries allowed, sacks allowed.
Hmm.
That for that it's really good. Like I really like using those because they help you, with you watch the game and you're like, okay, like Eric Fisher fucking sucks at pass protection. And
Yeah.
then you go to PFF and it's like, okay, yeah, he allowed 10 Harris. And you're like, okay, this makes sense. Like, I can see the logic in this. And then you see that Eric Fisher has a 75.0 grade and Ryan Kelly has a 50.0 grade. And you're like, nah, that I can't understand.
The the way people that are not affiliated directly with football have tried to legitimize themselves, ESPN and Pro Football Focus are the harbingers of things that kill sport, right? If you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty, ESPN and NFL Network spend way too much goddamn time on losers. Perennial losing organizations that are just like the highlight. And tell me I'm lying. The Giants, the Jets, the
Yeah.
Cowboys, the Redskins, the fuck all of the NFL is like front and center. And it's why? Because they represent potentially big networks. And every one of them, every single one of them organizations win is a loop in their fucking belt, and it just tightens their grip on those particular institutions. And now what they've also done is added recent Super Bowl winners. So your Tampa Bay and your LA,
Yeah.
those are the ones that are, and then the guys that are getting close, your Aaron Rodgers, they just can't stay and out of the media, and they're trying to find ways to not talk about Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and in how those three are the quarterbacks that fucking matter right now,
Yeah.
and that everyone else is playing catch up to those organizations. And the Colts, among very few teams, made the sort of move it takes to be the four in that little trio. Because from my eyes, there is a large chasm between, like, people want to talk about Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, hit them one fucking time. Your entire argument's invalid. They're standing on the sideline holding their helmets. Those other three boys I mentioned are fucking athletes, and you hit them one time and then they bury you. And that's the difference between me and PFF. Is PFF has been shoving Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers down your throat for so fucking long. But now they're old, bro. And you just can't admit that these young kids are putting up 500 and 600 yards of offensive game and they're scoring 50. Well, they just like can't accept that that's what we're doing now. You know what I mean? The NFL is an offensive league. I mean, am
Yeah.
I speaking gibberish? You know what I mean? Like, you watch the NFL now, and it's like it's a duel. Games are duels now. We're trying to go to the moon and I get it. This background's unique for that particular sentence, but that's what I mean. Like, really, really, I was telling my buddy, I have to tell you a story. I don't know if we should do it on this podcast or if we should do it after, but badass football story. But anyway, I just thought about that. This is so random. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, the Colts. So yeah, it's it's just it's a fun time of year. I miss Reggie Wayne this time of year. Um, because he'd be arriving in style. I that's how I knew it wasn't today, right? There's no way it was today because you would have seen them arriving. That's like a thing, right?
Yeah. He was like, yeah. What was his last one? Like he came in with an IndyCar
Yeah,
race car.
he did a race car, huh?
Came in a chopper once. I remember that one.
Yeah,
So
that'd
wait,
be
let me
dope.
check when is
Didn't
his
guys ride
rookie
bikes? Didn't that people?
in a called schedule training camp. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know
like
if it's like tomorrow
tomorrow
or
or Wednesday.
okay now. Yeah, veterans report tomorrow.
Veterans Support tomorrow. That's what I figured. It's a good time to have your like first podcast of the year so you can catch everybody
Yeah,
else up.
kicking
Hey,
off.
nothing, absolutely stone nothing has happened all summer. Uh,
Yeah,
Kenny
so
Moore
yeah,
wants a new contract coming to camp. As far as I could tell, like almost everyone's gonna be there except Rodney McLeod, Darius Leonard. There was a defensive lineman, and then we just made a move for a D lineman, so I figure he might not be
yeah, but
there.
it
So it's like
was
a
like
couple.
fringe roster.
Hmm.
So basically, if you were like, say you were a Colts fan and you went like on a trip to the mountains, like straight after the draft, and you said, okay, I'm logging off and going to Alaska to
Yeah.
live for 2 months. And you came back today and you said, okay, did I miss anything? You didn't miss anything. Like
No,
it's
you
literally
missed
the exact
some
same.
articles that feel like they were written last year, and then every summer for the last 5 years, Colts are mediocre at this. Cool story, bro. Half those
Well,
guys
yeah,
aren't even on the
basically,
roster anymore. You know, you know what
yeah,
I mean? Like, there's a lot of fresh blood for the Colts in very important spots. The only known quantities that you can I think realistically depend on are the likes of like Jonathan Taylor. Probably going to have a banger year. Uh,
Yeah,
and then I thought Pittman played well a lot last year, and I think he'll continue that. And that's not to speak poorly of other people, but I, I think I could say it with my chest, like Colts played worse than their record even last year. If you
yeah.
want, that's how I feel about it. I think, and again, I I have changed. I've come become more of like a person trying to motivate others. And so I hope that like Colts players listen to our podcast, and I hope they hear me say like if I'm a Colts player, last year put a dirty taste in my mouth. I did not feel good
Yeah.
about the product that we put on the field, and I would have worked unlike I have ever worked before to get that fucking taste out of my mouth because that shit was just gross.
Yeah,
They were just,
disgusting.
and especially the end of that season, it's almost like you didn't want to be there together. And with the departure of Carson Wentz and how quietly that really happened, mm, it it I hate to be that guy, dude, but it tells me everything I need to know. Absolutely, I have absolutely no questions about how it's going to go in Washington, and I know, uh, I feel like the Colts got the steal of the millennium. I now I don't even remember what they got. Was that a fifth round pick for Matt Ryan?
Uh, it,
Third
what
round.
did they give up? Nah, yeah, third round pick.
Third round pick. Yeah, I'm good with that. Hmm.
Yeah,
But
and when
but
you think
oh,
about it,
here's our
we
clickbait.
traded.
Here's our clickbait conversation of the day. Are the Colts in a must win a Super Bowl season?
um, No, no way.
Like, there's no way
Like,
you could
not
have
at
that
all.
expectation.
Nah, no. Must win, no. I honestly believe that we could be like dark horse contenders where
Yeah,
if things go right, and everything
Dark
falls
Horse
into
is
place.
fitting. If the Colts would just get black unis,
Oh, that the black,
ah,
they were
Dark
sometimes
Horse,
that's
come on! It's
with
basically
like
our DNA, man.
black and like dark blue. Those
Yeah,
were
yeah,
fucking sick.
yeah. Navy
But
on
yeah, like
navy.
some
Navy on navy with black and white lettering. Hmm. Yeah. So tell me I'm killing it with a like Indiana, like the shape of Indiana on a patch. And obviously like your NFL patch and like the Colts thing right here, whatever. I know that's what I can't wait to do. When I get into coaching, the first thing I want to do is uniforms.
Did you get a
Look
chance
good,
like
feel good.
I believe the Eagles, the Eagles implemented a new black helmet, like
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
believe the NFL
It
like
was like a
finally,
dozen.
like why do you
Uh,
have that rule where you can only have like one helmet concept the entire season? Like
oh,
why
that's
limit
lame as fuck.
yourself here?
Yeah,
Why
why would you
fucking
limit the
limit
amount of money
yourself?
you could make?
Like that is literally like the stupidest thing I have ever seen. Like you have this like so many cool uniform combinations and you're just like not allowing them. Why? The Patriots, as much as I hate them, they have like one of the sickest like retro jerseys. The bats with the old like logo where it's like this
Hmm.
little Patriot snapping the ball.
Yeah.
Those red jerseys, those
Hmm.
were like,
Those are sweet.
yeah, those are sweet.
I like the Bills had all red with blue stencil, and that was a dope uniform combination.
Well,
Did it for one game. But I'm look, if I'm if I'm picking a job in football, it's the Oregon Ducks because
yeah,
you got a million unique combinations that I'm telling you, kids come to that school entirely for that, and it's the elite of the elite. It's a track school, so you know you're going to win football games. And then like I said, any time you give kids options, athletes options, you're going to get a little more out of them. They're going to work a little extra hard because those unis are dope. That's enough drive to keep someone at it. And I think it's lame as hell. If if we're gonna all die because of capitalism, I want multiple helmets
Yeah, at least
and
we
uniforms.
we can have
If you're gonna burn the earth, you know what I mean? If you're gonna just set it all on fucking fire, I
the
want to
very
see
least
some
you could
rad
give me is
helmets.
like
You
at
know what I
least two
mean?
different helmets. I'm
At
not
least
asking
two,
for a
maybe
different
three.
helmet each fucking
Yeah.
game, but like
Yeah. No,
at
that's crazy.
least two.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not asking much.
Yeah. I'm totally with it. I want more uniform combinations. I want yeah, yeah. Yep. I want people that write and that are journalists and write about sports to know that comparisons are the thief of joy. And
Yeah.
oh man. And actually, here's how I've decided players like Darius Leonard and then an athlete like Michael Strash. Is it Strachan? Strahan?
It's like Strand, yeah.
Strahan? Strachan.
Yeah,
I
you're
looked it
gonna
up.
have to
He's
look that
from
one
he's
up,
from
but
Bermuda. So
yeah.
I want to say that's Strahan. Strahan?
Yeah.
We'll just eat it.
Let me check.
Um, but I was looking at, so it's not his 40. You didn't draft him for his 40. You drafted him because he has insane short area quickness for his size. This makes him not only valuable on any down he's healthy, but especially good near the goal line. Um, and with good pass catchers and good athletes in space, like Alec Pierce and Naeem Hines, it's bigger wide receivers like Michael Pittman and a
Yeah,
Michael Strahan should feast if healthy, and even like a Mo Alley Cox. Why? Because they have to put their very best athletes on your very best athletes. So like when the opponent is thinking about this, in my eyes, obviously it's your number one corner on our number one corner. But outside of that, you kind of have to line up on a guy that can run with that person, right? If you're guarding the Colts, for example, and they're in the middle of the field and they come out and you put, like we've been saying, a Pittman and a Strand on the same side, and on the opposite side, you go Taylor out into the flat, Naheem Hines on a little 10-yard out, and then somebody run a deep flag. And it would be very hard to defend, guaranteed to be open. It
yeah,
obviously we got to figure out who that backside receiver is. Um, and hopefully in this training camp, they'll get enough laps against good corner play. Um, like a guy like Gilmore can kind of bring someone through the ringer, and then they kind of crown someone the two, right? Because that's really what.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think you can win. I don't think you can win a Super Bowl if you don't have really good one and two wide receiver. And even if you make Hines into a receiver, again, I don't think
yeah. He's still
him
like a slot receiver at best.
I don't know how to say it. You don't win a Super Bowl with that guy as like your second leading receiver. It's the same reason you don't win a Super Bowl with your running back as your second leading receiver. Why? It's because you're putting too many repetitions on an individual. Um, you got to spread the ball out more. You become easier to defend. Um, so that's what this my question in training camp isn't. It isn't they have plenty for me offensively. Um, they seem to be more efficient, score more touchdowns, and kick less field goals. And
Yeah,
then on the other end, after reading Troy's article, the Colts need to allow less uh,
Long drives,
long
less
drives,
touchdowns.
and
Yeah.
well, it's not even that. It's like they were allowing points every drive, like three-quarters of drives. The Colts defense last year allowed points, and it's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
you and then they were opportunistic, right? So it's like you can't always rely on those turnovers.
yeah, that's like another thing, where the numbers match the itis. Where
Yeah,
like you watched the Colts defense last season and you were like, it's like almost every single possession is either the opposing team scores or we get a turnover. Like there was no in between.
yeah. There was no punt fest.
Yeah.
Um, so and I get it. That's not what fans want to see. So of course, like there's people listening to our podcast, like, why would you want to watch a punt fest? Well, that lets you know that there's like
Fans win championships.
ebb and flow to the game, and teams that force punts win
Yeah.
championships. Um,
Yeah.
it's teams
You need
that
to be able to stop
allow
that. Yeah.
long touchdown drives every time the opponent gets the ball. They had 4 or 5 long touchdown drives. You're losing that game.
You're wearing
Um,
out your defense.
yeah, you're putting too many repetitions on a player. I mean, the reality is, even at the highest of levels, the 75 plus play games is terrible for athletes. And that's basically where they are right now in the NFL is about 75 plays a game. So anything we can do, like I said, I always want to lift up players and remind them that like these are just people that have chosen to stay in really good shape way longer than they should.
Yeah.
Um, and that are playing a game that they teach children to play um, for very large sums of American dollars, and we're just lucky to get to sit around and jaw about what might happen. At least we didn't spend the last month talking about what might have been or pontificating about
Yeah.
uh, uh, how many players the Colts. I like they said something about the Colts having like the 21st ranked defense with like 7 Pro Bowlers on it or some. That was an article that was written. Is like the Colts have this many Pro Bowlers ranked 20th in the league, but nobody in the top 15 had more than like 3 players that were considered Pro Bowl players. The Colts had, I want to say, if I remember correctly, the Colts had 5, and the
Yeah.
most anybody else had was 3, and the Colts are ranked 20th, and it was like, okay, that
Yeah.
makes
Five.
sense.
Yeah.
A
Yeah, but
Washington
that number
Redskin
that
fan
number was
wrote
a bit
that,
misleading because like one of those Pro Bowlers was, I believe, like the long snapper, like Luke Rhodes. We
probably,
had like it was like Jonathan Taylor. Was Quentin Nelson a Pro Bowler? Most likely.
probably.
Yeah. The Forrest Wagner, Kenny Moore, and Arizona.
Mhm.
And then the sixth one was Luke Rhodes.
There
Oh
were
yeah,
7,
yeah.
right?
Luke Rhodes and no, I believe that was it. Like those six. I can think of anyone else on the Colts that was
Yeah,
like
it
at least
certainly
deserving.
wasn't the offense. I was gonna say, outside of, and I don't even know if Quentin Nelson. I could be wrong. He definitely is great. Like I'm not saying that.
Yeah, and like in my opinion, like Pro Bowl, like the Pro Bowl lost so much like of its value and recognition. Like I try not to use it as much because it is a fan vote and no, I don't wanna like critique. I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me,
Sure.
but most NFL fans like they just vote their favorite player or they just go like with the mainstream media telling them and
Right.
of course that is logical, I'm not blaming them for that. Like most guys don't have the time or the passion perhaps to like
Yeah.
dissect every single aspect of a football game.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's why I try not to pay attention to the Pro Bowl votes and instead like focus mostly on all pros
Hmm.
or like qualified professional media and the
Right.
players decide who gets in and who doesn't.
Right.
And what I really like that is coming up is like the NFL Top 100,
Hmm.
or I love that where you get like opposing players talking about your players, and you're like,
Right.
okay, what are the opponents thinking of Jonathan Taylor, and they start telling like funny stories, and it's so fun to watch. It
Yeah.
brings this element of humanity into the league. Like these are human beings that like have relationships with each other, and they probably like get along with each other.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
It is. And fortunate and again, keep beating that drum, man. It's been such a quiet off season that all I've really do is seen our players do nice things in the community and just you know they're working hard. They get paid a bunch of money. That facility's super nice if you ever get around that west side of town.
Yeah.
Um, Super nice facility. Um, and then you know the the Colts are gonna look in my opinion, based on what you saw last year to this year, you see a lot less hiccup and a lot more, you know what I mean, just chugging along. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
last year I felt like they were stop and go where they'd have some periods where they're actually moving the ball really well here for long periods, and then they just go through some. And I think with a more steady hand back there, somebody that knows, there are people that still have questions about whether, I was thinking about this earlier today, like what's a good sort of like riff on a podcast? There are grown men out there that don't normally get in fistfights that are confident they'd win one. And Carson Wentz, unfortunately, is one of those people that hasn't been in nearly enough fistfights and is very confident. And then there are people like Matt Ryan, who similarly probably hadn't been in a lot of fistfights, does not portray the confidence to win that fistfight. And then when you watch him as an athlete on the field, and you go back, and fortunately for me, it's like I was telling you earlier, like all day long, to my left is my TV's on NFL Network, and they replay full seasons. Atlanta was actually the beginning of June. It was in June they
Yeah.
showed Atlanta season. So I got to watch like facing the television, like his first 6 games last year. It's a tough quarterback in a bad situation, getting hit a lot, and also had guys dropping balls like crazy. And they were in these games and winning too. So it's not like he was on a bad team that wasn't winning and he wasn't playing well. No, actually, he was playing at a high level. The team was in these games and even winning some of them. And then obviously you're going to have what every other team has. This is a war of attrition. Injuries are going to pile up for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just who makes it to the end with the most of their stars intact. Um, and then of course when your team's rickety, which is what I would call a lot of teams in the NFL is pretty rickety, like they're put together, right? They're rickety. This guy goes down, it's all coming apart real fast. Um, that's the Atlanta Falcons. If a guy like Matt Ryan goes down, you got nothing on offense. Now you add a guy like Matt
Yeah.
Ryan to an offense last year that was not hyper efficient on the field. What they were doing was efficient labor, but what they were actually showing on the field was not nearly as efficient. So when you add someone that's like good at this job to an offense that was already good at doing its job, you're going to see a lot more points, a lot more. So that makes me feel comfortable up front, as I know the Colts are going to score more points on offense, which makes them more exciting to watch it, and more people will like the Colts as a result. And that's really all we can ask for, right? Because that means more eyeballs on the content we create,
Yeah.
and that's ultimately what we want, right? So we make content so
Sure.
people like us. But yeah, I basically took the summer and went and got a couple certifications. So I got involved with a veterans organization called Soldiers to Sidelines, which is a 501(c)(3) aimed at putting veterans on sidelines, on sports sidelines. Um, I got a football certification for the year, and then I went back and got a sports performance certification for the year because I've always had like an interest in strength and conditioning, but I have no clue what I'm talking about. So it was like, cool, I'll just go to one of those. So I got to meet the athletic director of the Naval Academy. I got to meet, which is a woman, by the way, and rightfully so. And then I got to meet the director of sleep for the Army, which is Major Berger. She was awesome, also a woman. And then I get to meet, I want to say it was the doc for Special Forces. So it's like SOCOM's doctor and also a woman. Um, and they all gave presentations about sports performance. You'd be surprised, and I know the lay sports fan is this has to be like super intriguing. Do you know what single activity, one single activity that is the single most important factor behind sports performance? Like your ability to perform at a high level. What is the
I-
single
If
factor?
I had to risk one, I
Just
would
one
say
word.
it's sleep.
Exactly correct. And I laid it up for you. I told you the director
Yeah,
sleep
yeah,
and
yeah. You
our
told me
major
the
major
director sleep.
major
You
burger.
kind of leaded me,
Yeah.
where
So
this was
so
going.
so here's what's crazy. Are you ready for this? In terms of performance, every hour under 8. So at 4 hours of sleep, your body is 50% capable of what it's capable of in a given day with 8 hours of sleep. Okay? And
Yeah,
it goes up obviously not at exact increments and it doesn't affect everybody equally and yada
yeah.
yada.
Of course,
This
it's
is
not
what
like an
affects
exact
most people.
science.
But
It's not a one size
that
fits
fifth
all.
hour is a little over 60% of what you're capable. That 6 hours like 75%, 7 hours like 87 and a half, and then 8 hours of sleep. If you can get 8 hours of sleep a night, that is 100% of the rest that your body requires, and you're going to operate efficiently to that day. And anything less than 8 full hours of sleep is detrimental comparatively to any other single behavior that you could really do other than like be a drunk, right? And obviously, there ain't no drunks in the NFL. You wouldn't make it. Trust me.
Yeah,
There are guys that are drinkers. There are guys that are even alcoholics, but they're not drunks in the NFL. So that's what I'm saying, because you wouldn't be able to sleep as much as you're out partying and shit. Nope, that shit gets shut down. Trust me. These guys in the NFL, there's a microscope on them. They can do nothing. And that's the other thing is that when we see our athletes out doing nice things, keep in mind, um, we have this pandemic, we have what is it now? What is this pox we have going on?
yeah.
And
The monkeypox.
yep, and we've again managed to stay quiet, and then I've seen that also with the rest of the NFL. It's been really quiet, an off season, and that's smart for the NFL as a brand. I also saw, you know, with the end of the NBA season and like the NBA draft and stuff like that, like all the sports have been very get in and get out. And I'm with it. You know what I mean? Like as much as we can. Um, Obviously, it's not fun, but
Yeah,
if anything, it's we're learning how to live with through this. So like for example, I hadn't been to games. I want to go to that Chiefs game for
yeah.
the
That's gonna
Colts.
be a really good one.
I think not only do the Colts have the Chiefs number, but it's the Chiefs at home. And obviously if it's Patrick Mahomes for a game Mahomes versus a game Ryan, that's a sweet game. Atlanta in in Matt Ryan's time had been in some shootouts, some barn burners, and I believe that's the kind of offense you have to take down teams like the Bills and the Chiefs regularly. Is you just got to be able to run and gun just like they run and gun on you, because it could very well come down to who has it last with time, right?
Yeah, should have.
Yeah, and if I get to choose what kind of 50-50 ball I want to play, it's the shootout, not the scoreless defensive game. I don't want that shit. If I want them to have to match me, and I want my offense to work, because I think that you could play better. You could always play better defense, but offense is kind of one of those things you either know what you're doing or you don't.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's black and white. Yeah,
You could fix what you're doing on defense, but your offense is black and fucking white. That shit either is working or it is not.
yeah.
Um,
I also think that I might be wrong on this one. It's just like from what I've seen. there are, I mean, it's easier to hide a terrible defense than it is to hide a terrible offense,
Yeah.
in my opinion, from watching
Yep.
the NFL.
Because well, so many of these organizations have been playing bend don't break, trying to keep their defense healthy without committing too much and gassing players, and then have to play their scrubs that are like undrafted free agents because their stars are burnt up. Um, and so you have this sort of ebb and flow in a football game where the players are trying to save themselves, the organization is trying to save the player, the coach is trying to save his job, right? So you have all these sort of strings that are pull and affect games, and it really comes down to it's just like Chris Ballard has been saying all along that if you have great depth in your interior, it makes people's job like quarterback and running back and wide receiver and even tight
Yeah,
end
much easier.
less important. They're not nearly as vital because we had time and our run fit worked and we had a great running lanes. Um, and I think this will be one of those years when you look back and you'll say, what a hell of a first year. Maybe not the top of the mountain. I think it's
Yeah,
a lot. I try to think of everything about on would I bet that? Would I put money on that outcome? I would not bet the Colts to win the Super Bowl. I would bet them to win a playoff game. That seems like an outcome I could get behind because that's both a step forward and it falls within about 3 or 4 games better than they did last year. So that's about the expected improvement from a move like they made is you could possibly win 3 or 4 more games the next season. Like your plus minus isn't going to change. You're not gonna go from a 4 win team to an 11 win team in a year. It doesn't
yeah,
happen. You're definitely going to go 4-7-11. That like happens. Um, it's far more likely that the Colts win like 10 to 11 games. That is the most likely outcome. However, probably gonna have to win more than that to you gotta host basically you gotta host a playoff game.
yeah,
To really ideally to win a Super Bowl, you gotta host a playoff game, and I think that to me because one of the things I've learned this summer in learning from the likes of Bobby Ross and Dick Vermeil and meeting all these awesome people is planning to win a championship is a fool's errand. And that the reality of the situation is that when you set a championship expectation, you just cursed your organization. You gave your opponent locker room chalkboard material for the entire season. Every opponent now just gets to chew you alive. They're going to watch your film and shit on you because this is a team that says it's going to win a Super Bowl. Okay, let's watch their film, right? Is that what we see on film? Probably the fuck not. And notice every year it's the team with championship expectations that does not win, right? Namely the Green Bay Packers. Who are we really talking about? But it's just true. I feel like every year they say, oh, like it's championship or bust, right? That's kind of why I led with that. Like, do you think the Colts are in championship or bust? No, not with a first year quarterback. That's insanity. Show me a first year quarterback winning a Super Bowl. It, are they just, I mean, Stafford does not count, right? Played in the league like a while before he went to LA. But like, you know what I mean? Like a
yeah,
first year with a
yeah.
new
It rarely ever
organization.
happens. Yeah, it rarely ever
Very,
happens.
very rarely do you get a guy. Obviously, like Peyton goes to Denver. Man, that
Brady goes to
defense
the
took him a
Bucks.
long way. Brady was the Bucks. Man, Bruce Arians is a really good offensive coach. Um, but yeah, I get it. The the new NFL says like a quarterback can win anywhere, right? But that's not the way that it worked traditionally, and it doesn't work that way most often. But yeah, I think the Colts are in a enviable position. Um, I noticed especially at running back as teams go to like fill in. their rosters, and then I go look at their backfield, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
man, that's really hard. I mean, it's really easy to game plan against your team. All I gotta do is hit your one running back. All I gotta do is hit him a few times, and then anytime you put another back on the field, you ain't handing him the ball. You're passing. Want to play football? You know what I mean? Like, but when you've got actual depth at running back and you have a solid offensive line and you have a rotational depth along your offensive and defensive lines, um, you could wear teams out. And I think that's what we're going to see. A lot of those like 37-7 games where you just
Yeah.
ground someone out. Um, I think this will be the season where the Colts have some quick wins and people are upset because the Colts just ran people out, man. The game was over in an hour and 40 minutes. You know what I mean? Like shit,
Yeah.
that clock stopped moving, man. Like, and that's how you know you're playing good football is when that game feels like it goes by like nothing. It's when you're in there for 3 hours when you're like, man, we didn't do something right, man. You know what I mean? Like Titanic only comes on every now and then. This is a
Yeah.
lot of time. Um, yeah, it feels good. I mean, it certainly drove my whole summer. Just knowing like that this team that I've chosen to root for because I live here, is in a really good spot. And like when you are wearing an organization's colors in public, it's always funny to me that the only time I ever see anybody wearing the Jets, the Cowboys, the Redskins,
Yeah.
these organizations is when they're talking about it on ESPN or NFL Network. You know what I mean? When you go out in public, you see, like I said, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bills. You know what? You know who I see in public a lot? Because I live near a military base, so I live near people from all over the country live around here. The Miami Dolphins. Um, and I think they did win like 8 of their last 9 last year towards the end of their season, right? With a new coach. And then they up I think they had like a good draft and then they also upgraded a wide receiver, right? So I
Yeah.
think so I think people want to be fans of the next wave, like whatever that is. Um, I kind of think if Matt Ryan, if he watches film and sees what we saw, and then goes out and does what you expect, as long as that ball's out quick and he's upright and healthy, um, the offense kind of runs itself. These guys are just open, just hit them. Maybe watch the, the show, and I just, man, I hope for a quiet camp. You
Yeah.
know,
Hopefully.
every it would,
Nothing.
I
Nothing
want
big.
no, I want all contested 50-50 balls. That's what I want. Contested. They went to the ground and the officials had to have a conference every time there's a 50-50. I want them fighting over that shit because that's what really matters. None of this other shit matters. It's not about context. It's about any 50-50 ball.
Yeah.
We winning those shits. Because everything else is you're catching it wide open, you know what I mean? Or the ball's handed to you. No, I need like contested 50-50 balls
Yeah.
and just become tough as hell at just catching it anyway. It's kind of like I've been taking a sort of I would call it a master's course, but that's a little lazy. So I joined what's called a membership development program with this Soldiers to Sidelines organization, and there's coursework involved. So it's like I'm paying for schoolwork. It's great. Um, but one of the things I had to do was I had to develop like how do you intend to inspire other people? Um, so I'd kind of let in with the idea that like it's a fool's errand to have championship expectations out of an organization, especially with like a first year quarterback. Now, if this was next year, it's fair. It's what they're going to get anyway, or the year after maybe. But again, you know, these kinds of conversations are going to be had, so it's just
Yeah.
fun to get it out before training camp, like, um, and know that really I want to see for this season most of all improve that has nothing to do with the Colts at all. The officiating. I would like to see that improve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I hope the
Yeah.
Colts stay healthy, but mostly I want to watch a game without feeling like the officials had a hand in the outcome. And I felt it always feels gross
Yeah, when
when
you get like, yeah.
when you feel like that, when you're like, oh man, I feel like the officials had a hand in this outcome. It should not be a factor in the sport at all. I think that not only does it need to be officiated better, but they need a better check and balance system, and they need it resolved quickly too. It's almost like you could use those TV timeouts in conjunction with questionable calls that need reviewed. I don't know. So you can come back from break with a resolution after you watch that. I don't know. I'm just talking nonsense. Um, but yeah, I'm hoping for some better officiating for the season. And again, we're hoping for a quiet camp because we've gotten super lucky. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, we have.
no, no, I mean, I hate to even like say anything out loud, but we just had like the Houston Texans. They draft a receiver and he gets diagnosed with leukemia. Um, Now it's a super treatable, although rare. He'll be fine. He'll be able to play. Hopefully, have a full career. Um, Again, Colts had a super quiet offseason.
Yeah.
And don't appear to have a quarterback on their payroll that has settled 30 plus sexual assault uh, cases against him. Um, and also didn't have to give away a starting quarterback after we treated him poorly and he refused to play for us. So
Yeah.
we have that going for us. I like to I like to stand on those things that at least we're not the Browns. Uh,
Yeah, thank God.
or all chips in one basket, trying to pretend like keep Derrick Henry's going to keep producing like he has year in year out at that size, um, but clearly have all their chips in that basket for
Yeah.
the Titans. And for that we know is worth about 10 games, and that's just a little outside the playoffs, I think. Um, but yeah, I think we've talked a fair amount of shit here. The night before training camp starts, and again, like I said, I'm gonna keep saying it. Like I just want it to keep being as quiet as it's been, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
All
Hopefully we don't have to record an emergency episode because something happened.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's what we are hoping for here.
Yeah, and that yeah. And that my drive, like I like it when my driving force for recording a podcast is that one of my buddies had to write an article about how somebody said the Colts picking up Stephon Gilmore was like, oh, that he's overrated as a player, and that'll be
Yeah.
an overrated move for the Colts. And it's just like nothing has happened because that's the subject matter that Sports Illustrated came out with today. Like clearly this is the apocalypse.
Yeah, so
Uh,
hopefully it remains that way.
yeah, so hopefully that stays that way. I like it that way. It's nice and quiet. There's nothing. All's quiet. They're just working really hard, and they're coming out. You know what I want to see? Darius Leonard 100% healthy for
Yeah, hopefully.
at least like a series, because these guys. It's a tough game, man. Nobody's ever really 100%. Um, Except maybe your kicker.
Yeah.
He he might get to 100%. But anyway, what do you think? You think it's about good, man? Like I don't know. I'm trying to think. Feel like I said it.
Yeah.
If you want to follow a hardly active Twitter account that only posts the links to our episodes, you follow the Coltist on Twitter. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, I post lewd and politically inappropriate things at Likely Alien. Um, I encourage you, if you are a football fan or you're a Colts fan, to go to StampedeBlue.com. I have the privilege of just knowing a bunch of super talented people that write for the Colts. And I'm not necessarily above that. I'm just not required to produce that kind of content. I don't even know what my production requirements are anymore, as I enter my 5th year with Vox and Stampede Blue. I've
Yeah.
said from day one, I'm just lucky to be here. You can expect, I think it's probably fair. We should probably do like a weekly podcast um, through the season.
Yeah.
And then whatever we do in the off seasons, whatever we do. And then I'm gonna try to do more fantasy football and gambling stuff this year because I feel like what I was doing last year was good. And then we I like both. I'd rather talk. So would love to do fantasy football podcasts for Stampede Blue. Or like a DFS or just gambling in general. And then I'll do my post-game wrap videos after every Colts game. I make like a 5 to 7 minute video where I tell you kind of what happened, why they won, why they lost, who played well, who played like shit, and then who they play next, and what happened around the league that has some impact on the Colts. But yeah, and Mateo writes a lot too, right?
Yeah. So just follow our work there on the side.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that was has been episode 30 of the Coltist.
LaRon Landry special.
The LaRon Landry special. The All-American from LSU.
So yeah, it's been great being back.
Yeah. Glad to have you
Well,
back.
see you next time, brother.
See you, my man.